Coming up on the Braves Sports Network, we have the Cedric Thomas program. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after this timeout.
Some names immediately evoke an uncommon sense of family, an unmistakable sense of character, an undeniable sense of legacy. Always. Where trailblazers and innovators chart new paths of possibility. Where academic rigor empowers the strength of character to lead with knowledge and integrity. It's a name that harkens back to over 150 years of truly making a difference in our world. Always Alcorn.
Can I get the now bar, please?
$1.
Have a good one.
Got it.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey.
Let me get a now bar.
Sure. $1.
Appreciate you.
You got it.
There we go. All right, coming up, we have the Cedric Thomas Show here on the Braves Sports Network, 91.7 WPRL and WPRL.org, WMIS WTYJ Fayette Natchez, and 90.1 WMPR in Jackson. The Braves coming off a tough loss to UAPB, and now the schedule flips. We've got more home games and road games. We have 5 home games coming up beginning on Saturday as Prairie rolls into town at a 3 o'clock kickoff. So we'll take a 1-minute break here. We'll be right back with the Cedric Thomas program after this here on the Braves Sports Network.
Here, every journey is unique, but no one walks alone. At the Alcorn State University School of Business, we don't just teach business, we always empower visionaries who dare to reimagine it. From day one, you'll forge connections and develop the confidence to lead in a rapidly evolving world. Join a legacy of trailblazers who don't just respond to change, they drive it. Always ahead, always empowering, always Alcorn.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Or maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
To the Cedric Thomas program. Glad you could join us on this Monday night as we return home finally from the friendly confines of Jack Spinks Marino Castle Stadium coming up on Saturday at 3 o'clock. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff, Alcorn and Prairie View. So let's recap the UAPB game, shall we? You can text a question, 601-301-2611 on X Tall Man Radio. Glad you can join us. Charles Edmond, our producer, Cedric Tillman, and Jamario Brooks, Braves head football coach Cedric Thomas. Coach, talk about Memphis, the Southern Heritage Classic, our first visit there. It started on Friday with the press conference, banquet, luncheon, whatever you want to call that, and a lot of talking back and forth there. Just your first experience, your first foray for you and your team getting ready for that game.
More so for me, it was just, the luncheon was amazing. Really good turnout, really organized, and just, really supportive on both institutions. So I thought that was well. Besides the players getting to the stadium, they really didn't have any involvement with the actual, activity that was going on. But just listening to a lot of family and friends, they said the city was, it was a nice turnout and very festive. And so, I think that's a good situation if we can continue to play in it. I just think it's a really good fit, for, the nation and those two institutions. We just got to win. And I think that's the biggest thing and make everybody feel a whole lot better, not only just in the Classic, but just playing, period, now.
And the Sounds of Dynamite, they were in the parade on Saturday. So there's a lot going on involving the band. I saw a lot of videos and pictures of alums all over Memphis doing some good stuff.
Yeah, my wife, she told me about it, and it was really, really festive because for her, she's from Memphis and she's been in that parade, for years. And so to see the turnout and her be excited and talk about, just the pageantry, it lets you know that it's still going on strong.
Well, let's talk about the football game, Coach. When you look at this game and this matchup, it's a heck of a football game. You look at Alabama A&M had a chance late, even against UAPB, had a chance late, kind of back and forth. A lot of big plays made in this game.
Yeah, we just got to kind of stumping our own toes down the stretch and just giving up a couple explosives and just penalties at the, just the bad times, Mr. Charles. And we just got to, continue to work to clean it up. But, this is maybe the second game down the stretch where we actually got a chance. Might be the third, that we just coming a little short. And so it's some things that we got to clean up from a penalty standpoint, organization standpoint. And so, in the morning we'll continue to do it and try to get those things rectified. But, love the way the guys play. They really care. It means something to them. They're playing with some effort. And now we just got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot.
Well, let's look at some of the highlights of this game, Coach. You won the toss and took the football.
Yeah, offensively, I wanted to kind of let those guys get out there off a fast Friday, being in the stadium, and was expecting those guys to just really have a good turnout, moving the ball up and down the field. And so that was kind of, one of the deals that we wanted to kind of change up.
So he got the football, Coach, and got it to UAPB's 20-yard line, and a field goal attempt from 38 yards by Lorenzo Garcia. He missed it wide right. No Brandon Wilcox. Can you talk to us about that?
Nah, I only discuss guys that's associated with the team. So we hope, Wilcox and their family, get the things that they need, for their young man.
Is he coming back the rest of the year?
Nah, he done.
Okay. So, obviously no Brandon Wilcox. Lorenzo Garcia attempting a 38-yard field goal. You're able to move the football, Coach. Sewell for 25 yards had a monster game, of course. We had a monster running attack that was working for us. But just talk about that first drive. We're able to move the football, but we come up empty.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the deals. We expected to run the football early and just kind of wound and pound a little bit, on those guys and feel like we had some creases in the run game. And Sewell, did exactly that. Just fell a little short. I think we had a penalty down the stretch to kind of bag us up. But, Renzo, he makes those kicks every day. So he just got to do a better job of just kind of seeing it through and giving us those points.
So we come up empty on that first drive. We got the UAPB's 20-yard line. Then the Lions took over from there. And a 4th down and 15. Trey Glimp with a field goal. We were able to hold fourth there as the drive stalled at our 15.
Yeah, I thought those guys just settled in, as the drive went on and was able to make some stops, when we needed to. And so anytime we can keep those guys from not getting on the board, but even 3, is always a win for us defensively.
So it was 3-0 at that point. So Tylen Citizen with a 21-yard return. Coach, you talked about some adjustments in the kickoff return game. Talk about that.
Yeah, just personnel things that, now going into week 5, we're changing, pieces around and continue to develop this roster and give kids opportunity with young adults opportunities to play that's doing things right on and off the field. This roster has some guys that we feel like can play and the time will permit. Tyler, had the big fumble against Mississippi State, but we still owe him an opportunity to be able to go out there and do it, and we saw what he can do because he do it in practice every day. So it was good to see him move the football around, and maintain the possession.
3-0 UAPB. Our next drive started at the 43-yard line. We got some big plays on that drive, Coach. Cahoe with a touchdown. And so when you look at it, 24 yards, Coach, you talk about the plethora of receivers that we have. A lot of folks were impressed with the game that he had, and he had the touchdown to give us the lead early. Talk a little bit about that.
We wanted to feature him in this week, give him opportunity. That's one of them personnel deals that we talked about, KO's, walk-on fours that we put on scholarship this year. And we've been seeing the matriculation of him just through the system and learning what to do. And so he made a lot of big catches for us this week. And so, Coach decided to put him out there and start him. And I thought he reaped the benefits from it. So just excited for him and his family for getting that opportunity, staying with us, and just staying hungry and being able to make those plays when the time permitted.
What does he bring or what does he add to the wide receiver room?
Competition. Anytime you got a lot of guys that can get out there and do it at that level, he got a real big catch radius, run really good routes, physical on the perimeter. He's what you're looking for as a guy, on the perimeter. But it was just good to see him play. I think it was his first start on this level, and he played a really good football game for us.
He got the touchdown, but the PAT was no good.
Mr. Charles almost fainted. We work, I must keep saying it, every single day we go outside, we're going to punt, kick, and snap. And, up until the end, G was perfect, in all of the games. And so we saying this definitely won't be an issue to rear his ugly head because, we had some issues with the punt, snap, and we get that fixed. And, we've been 100% since then. And we roll it on the ground. And, boy, I tell you, we just, we'll keep on working it. We'll keep on working it. But unfortunate, situation. He kind of wrote it back there, and that cost us. Not only just with that 1 point, but it cost us, dearly in the end.
How does, and we see this at high school level, collegiate level, how much oxygen gets taken out of drives when you work so hard? It's hard to score touchdowns anyway. But when you get that, and then whether you miss a PAT or have it blocked or can't get the ball to the holder, however way, how much oxygen does it take out of momentum in that moment when it happens?
Yeah, it's a lot right now, because those are the things that we're really just trying to hone in on. Like I said, the punt issue is no longer an issue because, we're getting it back to the punter. You see the guys kicking and the operation good. You're going to miss some field goals, but the operation from the snap to the holder should be 100%, and he was 100% up until the end. And so it just knocked the winds out your sail, when you don't get that point, and you see what happens when you don't. Instead of being down 3, you're down 4, and you're trying to just come up the rear. And so, we know he'll continue to work at it, and we'll be out in the morning, doing the exact same thing, trying to make sure it don't happen again.
Well, 6-3 at that point. UAPB got the football with 5:18 left, and they were faced, Coach, with a 4th and 9 from our 31, and they went for it. Peters' pass incomplete. Talk about getting off the field there.
Yeah, that was huge. A couple of things of emphasis we really want to kind of, force this week is trying to get to the quarterback and also getting off 4th down. And I thought we started out, at a high rate, doing both. And I thought that was just a testament to Coach Roy and the staff being able to just take the coaching from practice to the actual game.
So we got the football at the 31-yard line on a 3rd down and 14. Tolbert's pass intercepted by Zach Williams. Now, this is a question that's come up on social media. There's a text that came in about some slippage, players slipping. Is it a turf issue? Is it spikes issue, lack thereof? We had a couple of players kind of slip, and I think on one of the picks, I think on that particular play, there was a slip there. Anything to talk about there? Anything to make of it?
Only thing I could come up with, and I see the other team, they fall also, but it's not as much. But we don't practice on turf. That's the only thing I could come up with. And we've played 4 games on turf, and we're probably the only grass school. I'm not sure, on this side, but I know we played 4 games on turf, and we don't have it. I know Pine Bluff has it, and that was just one of the unfortunate deals because we wanted Jarvis, one of our high. Leapers, one of our big jumpers, so we threw the, fade 50-50 ball to him, and it was just unfortunate that his feet came away from up under him, and you just sit there and you just, you're sitting shoulda, coulda, woulda. If he stays, up, do we at least knock the ball down, or do we, catch the football? And, it's just a bad situation. And so, we got to the stadium early, but I don't know if they had their actual game shoes on or their cleats, or did they have their tennis shoes on. So just an unfortunate situation. And so, we just got to, bow up from it and continue to get stops and, just do everything we can to try to get in those stadiums and play on that turf or see what it is, if it is the, a tire from a shoe standpoint or whatever that may be.
What the difference in terms of shoes, cleats, different types of cleats, length of cleats, what adjustments on turf that you make or possibly have to make as compared to on grass?
You get smaller spikes, almost like cross trainers. It's actually turf shoes. Different than what you would normally wear with the regular molded bottoms or the screw ends. It's just different. The length is different, and the surface on the bottom is different. So it definitely makes a difference. Most of the guys, some of them got them. I couldn't give you a specific number, but some have it, and I know some have just got the regular issue, attire that we have given them. And so I definitely, look into that because that's really intriguing that, that somebody brought that up.
So it's 6-3, Coach, at the end of the first quarter, so kind of back and forth through the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's just that miscue that we still just kind of not knowing it was going to, bite us in the tail, and then the pick in the red zone for me, which was an unfortunate situation, but still felt like we had some skin in the game and had opportunity to pull it out.
So Pine Bluff got the football next to start the second quarter at the 20-yard line. They had to punt. We got the football, Coach, with 12-11 left. Again, moving the football from our 13 to UAPB's 35-yard line. It was a 4th down and 3 from there, Coach. Decision to go for it on 4th and 3. Had a little momentum moving the football. Was that something you were thinking about?
No, it's conference play. For me, every possession counted. I wanted to kind of squeeze the game down, and so I think we might have took the delay and then, punt it and try to just pin them deep to make them, make them earn it. We had the lead and just didn't want to risk the field position.
Yeah, it was 3rd down and 5, and then 4th down and 3. So we had a 2nd and 5 from the Lions' 37-yard line. So it was a manageable sequence right there.
Yeah, it was. And so I just, like I said, it was it's playoff time, and I just wanted to make sure that that I could play the field position game with UAPB and make those guys drive it and earn it.
So they got the football at their 16-yard line on a 3rd and 9. Jalen Jennings for 19 yards and a touchdown as they were able to move the football. Peters to Chris Hicks for 44 yards, and then Peters to Kareem Burke for 20. So a couple of explosive plays on that drive.
Yeah, they caught us in a field pressure, which was a good call by them. The quarterback did a good job of catching the slide up the seam, and the safety didn't get over, and it was just a bang play. One of those. We get there in time and hold it. We get a sack. But he did a good job of seeing it. I did it, and the wide I did a good job of just staying in the seam. And so they got us on the explosive. Then at the end, they got us on a fade route. Teachers got to turn around, and just get in phase, lock, lean, and look, go find the football and get it out.
Talk about this quarterback, running back tandem. When you look at UAPB, Peters threw for 323 yards. And then Jennings really started the game strong. He had 18 carries for 63 yards, but it just seemed like he was involved in every play, whether it's coming out of the backfield or whether he was touching the football.
Yeah, they had some guys, I think, injured, and so I think they just kind of, pushed his, his rate up, his usage rate. And when you see how slick and the quarterback, trying to get him to the turf and him moving around, we knew he was going to be a handful, and so we tried to corral him, and contain him the best way he could. And he made some plays and got out of it. And then a couple of times we was able to get him. But every quarterback in this league can move around and athletic, and so we got to get ours to kind of step up and do some of those things to take the pressure off that old line also.
Well, Pine Bluff with a 10-6 lead, but Coach, we came right back with 5:47 left. We got the ball at the 32-yard line, and Jacorian Sewell had a monster game, over 200 yards rushing, 225 yards on a 2nd down and 1, took it 33 yards to the house.
He's self-explanatory. He missed the Alcorn for us. He puts the work in. He come out, practice hard every day, do all the little things, and so just to see him have that success, it's really a blessing for him and his family.
So we took a 13-10 lead there, but Pine Bluff, with 4:39 left, got it at the 49-yard line. It was a 23-yard Ellis Stewart return that kind of set it up. They got the football at midfield.
Well, the communication was off, that play. You notice the second half, we kicked the ball deep every time. And that possession, we actually sky kicked, and just got the communication crossed. We sky kicked it, and he was able to get it on about the 30. Maybe 37, 35, and then he rushed to 29 yards, would put it at the 50. So if we just kick it deep and we go pin him back, then even if he got them 30 yards, that ball is roughly about the 30-yard line. So it was a lack of communication on that part on the sky kick, and the young man took advantage of it by moving it up the field.
Yeah, they got it at the 49-yard line with 4:39 left. They converted a 3rd down and 7, and then they had it 1st and 10 from the Braves' 22-yard line. Out of the no huddle, Peters out of the shotgun. To Stewart for the touchdown, 22 yards.
Yeah, just a short field, put the defense backed up, and then just didn't get a stop that we needed at the right time. DB eyes was bad, wasn't looking at what he was supposed to look at, and then the run game on the push crack, allowed him to just kind of get to the edge and get that ball in the end zone.
So 17-13, Coach, 1:20 left in the first half. Got it at the 38-yard line. I know you work on this in practice. You put the football down. 1:20 left in the second quarter. Got it in good field position to start it at the 38. But on a 4th down and 1, Tolbert's pass to Ty Warren for 24 yards. Talk a little bit about that drive. We could have got some points there, perhaps.
Yeah, you got to get the ball to the end zone. That's Southern all over. Besides running out of bounds, throw the ball to the end zone. We work it, every Thursday. And so he got to set up and get that ball to the end zone, get the guys a chance to make a catch. But, short of the end zone doesn't do us any good.
Yeah, 17-13 UAPB at the half. What was the speech to your team at the break?
We got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. We got to execute at a high level. We knew it was going to be a long game, and we knew, that UAPB was going to fight tough. I think last year we was down 14-0. The year before that, it was a barn burner, and so we knew that team wasn't going to lay down and give it to us, and so we knew we had to come out and take it. And so that was kind of the speech and the mantra, going into the second half.
We'll take this time out here. We'll take a 1-minute break. We'll look at the second half where the Braves got the lead in that second half, and then UAPB comes back again. So we'll talk about that, some questions, and we'll look ahead to Prairie View. Prairie View beat Grambling in the State Fair Classic. They had 50,000, some pretty good crowds for the SWAC games, all SWAC games this past weekend. A sellout at Florida A&M, good crowd at Prairie View, good crowd in Memphis, and we know it'll be a good crowd here on Saturday as Prairie View rolls in here for the first home game of the year at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. We'll take a 1-minute break. We'll be right back after this.
We believe nursing isn't just a major, it's a calling. We're not just teaching skills. We're cultivating trailblazers who transform healthcare. Every breakthrough, every compassionate touch starts with curiosity, courage, and community. At the Alcorn State University School of Nursing, passion fuels innovation. Your journey starts here. Always innovating, always transforming, always Alcorn.
Founded in 1920, the Southwestern Athletic Conference has produced some of the most iconic names in sports. Alabama A&M, Alabama State, Alcorn State, Bethune-Cookman, Florida A&M, Grambling State, Jackson State, Mississippi Valley State, Prairie View A&M, Southern, Texas Southern, and the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff have united to embark on a new era of greatness. The Southwestern Athletic Conference, building champions for life.
University.
All right, we welcome you back to the Cedric Thomas program as we recap UAPB. Coach, I thought there was a lot of energy in the stadium. First time at the Liberty Bowl, they tore down a section of the stadium of, I think it's luxury, I don't know if it's skyboxes or whatever they're building on that opposite side, but interesting there, just going there for the first time. I really like the energy, going forward. Hopefully we can go back there.
Yeah, I would love to. I thought it was, from a location standpoint, geographically, I thought it was a good spot. A lot to do. Didn't hear a lot about violence and crime. I think the mayor did a really good job at the luncheon to discuss that and the safety of, just the overall people who would visit us and the people in state. And just looking, the small peaks that I saw, it was real festive.
Well, let's look at the second half of action. UAPB got the football, had to punt, and we got it with 13:28 left in the third quarter, got it at the 45-yard line. On a second down and 5, Jacorian Sewell rushed up the middle for a touchdown. We had to dodge a penalty on that drive, Coach, but we grabbed the lead 20-17, going 55 yards.
Yeah, I thought it was a good drive. Those guys did a good job. I think we had a good return by Jacoby Matthews. I think that's the one where he kind of got some yards on and, gave us a short field, and the offense did a really good job capitalizing on it.
Jacoby Matthews, a 28-yard return that kind of set that up.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. That was one of them changes that we said we was going to, make just from a personnel standpoint to continue to give guys opportunity that shows up in practice to be able to do it, and he capitalized on the moment.
So the Braves grabbed the lead 20-17. Now UAPB got the football with 10:34 left. It was kind of back and forth, Coach. We had an opportunity to kind of add to that advantage. Just talk about that tussle back and forth. Had the football with 8:12 left to start that drive, and had a holding penalty kind of set us back. So it looked like when we had some momentum on some drives, getting in our own way, unfortunately, with penalties.
Yeah, it's kind of the reoccurring thing, Mr. Charles, that we just got to, stop shooting ourselves in the foot. I thought we had about 4 possessions where we was up 3. We could have capitalized and got that lead a little bigger, and we didn't. We just kind of let that team hang around. And they was able to capitalize at the moment. But we got to understand, when we do have leads, especially in the third and fourth quarter, we got to put people away. It has to be a finishing mentality. However, we got to get it in the box. However, we got to get points. We got to be able to do that offensively.
Well, the score was 20-17, and going into the fourth quarter, 11:34 left. Coach, UAPB got the football with 11:34 left at their 21-yard line. A second down and 1 from the Braves 1-yard line. Christian Peters for a touchdown for a yard to give UAPB a 24-20 lead. That was a 79-yard drive.
Yeah, and I think that might have been a drive with the penalties. I think we had, close to maybe 30 yards. Could be a little more. I think we had a big time third down, roughing the passer, had a face mask, and we just can't do it. I get the roughing the passer. It was kind of bang bang, and it wasn't. But we got to understand we got to let up. They're gonna call it type on quarterbacks that's not protected. But the face mask penalty, we got to get our hands down and give ourselves a chance. So, unfortunately, we had those plays and got it down to the one and thought we was going to get a stop, but they did a good job of, running the zone read and getting in the end zone.
Well, there were 3 penalties. We were called for 3, as you mentioned, on that drive. Personal foul, 15-yard penalty for 1, and then it was another penalty.
Face mask.
And then on the third penalty that we had, Peters.
Pass interference.
Yeah. As you look back on it on film, any questionable things there? Was it kind of obvious?
Yeah, it was obvious. The one that the pass interference was kind of tough on the end because the tight end actually grabbed the linebacker, trying to snatch him away, and then the linebacker just grabbed. So that was a bang bang play. But I get it. The face mask for me was the one that that was just a bonehead play. Steve got to keep his hand down. The back, isn't a big back. We ain't worrying about him running through us, and we just got to get our hands down and make that tackle.
We had a player go down, and you went, and your body language, because you know what I was thinking. Here we go, another penalty, player going down. But I think you were complaining about something else on that particular situation.
Yeah, it was a crackback block. They blindside block on Jaquiz Do, and I didn't see it the way they saw it. And I get those guys, but the goalpost was kind of moving because it was, we saw him or he got to knock him down, and so it was just a lot of back and forth. And then after that, it was just really just worrying about the well-being of the player that was down. But I thought that was a questionable call also.
Interesting there. All right, so Pine Bluff got the lead, 24-20. Coach, 5:33 left, plenty of time left in this one.
Yeah, we kind of figured, Alabama A&M, we'll right our wrongs and be able to get down and score it and end it.
So we got the football with 5:33 left at our own 39-yard line. We were faced with a third down and 28, and pass caught for Tolbert to Cahoe for 50 yards, Coach, in the first down, and we were in business right there.
Yeah, I thought it was a good, awesome catch and explosion by K.O. Quarterback, led him a little bit, and he went and got it and put us in position to have an opportunity to win the football game.
So that put us in position. We had a second down and 18, and then a false start, Coach, that kind of set us back there.
Yeah, we had not only that, I think we had the false start and the legal formation, and we just can't. We can't afford to do it in those times. We got to sit in and be disciplined and understand, what the snap count is and just do what we coach to do. And those was just 2 of those situations, man. We really, starting from missing the extra point, because we in field goal range. That's totally different for a play caller now being there. But now having to score a touchdown, really kind of makes you have to recalibrate your whole thought process to win the football game.
Well, we got it at that Lions 14-yard line, and Reggie Davis scored from 14 yards out, but then a hold on Diallo. As you look at that play, Coach, what did you see there?
Well, that wasn't a hold. That was the legal formation. We had a motion across after we let the tight end shift, and he didn't let the tight end get set. So he shifted the tight ends over, and then he sent the wide out in motion. So that made it a legal formation because you got to wait till the actual tight ends get set. And so that was the play we scored, and we walked through it, that Saturday morning. I'm sitting at the walkthrough listening to Coach, tell him, hey, look, putting emphasis on you got to make sure he's stationary now before you can send him. And unfortunate, we just didn't execute, and it cost us a touchdown.
Yeah, it cost us a touchdown, and that put us back first down and 20 at the 24. Second down and 18, Tolbert's pass incomplete, intended for Amarion Blake's, and then on a second and 18, a false start penalty. And so that hurt us as well. Yeah,
and that's one of the old, one of our old seniors, Rashawn Gillespie was playing a good game up until that point, and just costly. It means something to him, but he got to sit in there and be still, and can't put us in that situation.
So there was 4th down and 16, Coach. 4th and 16, Tolbert to Amarion Blake's attempt on that play.
Yeah, the linebacker did a good job. Lurking back inside, he was kind of poaching off number 3. We wanted to. Kind of knew Omarion was physical and could take the pounding if he made the catch, but the linebacker did a good job of looking back inside and getting his hands on the football.
So to turn it over on downs, Pine Bluff got the football at their 22-yard line. It was an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty in there on UAPB. Just talk about the strategy there, Coach, and just trying to figure out a way to get the ball back.
Yeah, we had 3 timeouts, so I felt really good about it with them bagged up. And so we wanted to kind of load the box and see if we can get those guys, pinned back and be able to get one more possession for the offense.
So it was first down and 22 was on a sportsmanlike conduct penalty. Then Jennings for 2 yards, second down and 20, and then you took a timeout there. Then Jennings with the right side run for a yard gain, third down and 19. You called another timeout, and then Peters for 9 yards, fourth and 10. And just talk a bit about that sequence there going down the stretch.
Yeah, I think they took they added the penalty, after the play, so it wasn't actually first and 15, first and 20. It was actually first and 10. They just bagged the ball up, and so that last run gave them the first down of 10 yards, and so the safety just got his eyes bad. They ran the zone read. He fell inside, and the quarterback was savvy enough to just kind of tiptoe down the sideline, man, and get about 9 or 10 yards to complete that first down.
And that's how it ended. You tried to play the timeout game, just try to get one more possession.
Yeah, if we could have just, made that last stop, it was enough time on the clock. It was pinned back, and I just felt good about, getting that one, especially with the returner, and Jacobian, having that explosive return for us, but it just didn't work out. We didn't finish, and got to go back to the drawing board. We got to go back to, doing the things the right way, especially down the stretch and just finishing these football games off the way I know these guys are capable of doing.
I look at the stats, Coach, when you look at it, and I don't know how deeply you look at stats. Ja'Cory and Sewell, a monster game, 225 yards, averaging 9.8 yards per carry. Now the discussion, obviously, around folks talking about running the football, we rushed for 272, average 7.2. The discussion is, could we have run it more in certain situations? Did you feel good about how many times we were able to run the football? Of course, we were successful, but in certain situations, run it more, pass less.
Well, you got to get a credit to the defensive coordinator on the other side. We can run it every time, but it's not feasible for them to not stop it. And some of those stops that they had, we'll be crazy. We still run into a 9-man box after he had some of those explosives. So we just got to be mindful. It don't make no sense to just keep running the football in there, knowing that we're not getting 9 yards every time. It's the ending goal with a 9-yard average, but some of those runs don't get 9 yards, and so when we get heavy boxes, we got to throw the football. We got to be able to throw the football and keep people out that box. And so the times we do it, we felt like we had opportunities on the perimeter to be able to catch it, and the wideouts did a good job when they had the opportunity. And so I thought that wasn't the reason why we lost the football game with the run-pass ratio. We just got to be mindful down the stretch and do what everybody be seeing, when they come on Saturdays. We still missing that 1 point. Mr. Charles, I think we're on about the 15 or the 20. If we got that 1 point, then as a play call, it's totally different. You got a field goal in your back pocket, or you can play to win, and so we got to clean up those things from a special team aspect. We got 2 penalties, 30 yards, on the last drive where the defense can really close the game out. And we give them, 2 first downs, and then they score on that drive. So it's a lot of small things that's inside of that besides the run-pass ratio. Jalen got to do a better job when he get running lanes. That's some of the hidden yardage that's missing from a quarterback standpoint. He got to be able to tuck that ball inside and get 10 or 12 and then slide, and then they'll just open up the run lanes, for Sewell. And so those are the hidden yardage that we see, that I see as a head coach that we got to rectify and be able to help and not just put it all on Sewell.
Yeah, one of the things I have noticed through the first 4 games, Coach, Jalen Tolbert on the edges, especially to his right, those edges are open where he can't take off.
Yeah, they are. Because teams now, with 3 or 4 games in, they see that he's just, going to sit in the pocket and wait till guys come open, and that's cool, at times. But, we got to force the issue when they're going to close them B-gaps off. We got to be able to get to the perimeter and get what we can get and, slide. We got another quarterback. You can't play scared. You can't play soft. That's how the game is. Not saying that that's his mindset, but he has to understand that, what God got for us, he got for us. But we definitely going to have him take that football down, either run, slide, or get out of bounds.
Well, we talked about Sewell's effort averaging 9.8. I thought he ran with purpose. He ran with anger at times, and just he was hard to bring down.
He's an NFL kid, great kid. Just love him for the program. He means everything to me, in this program. So anytime I can get opportunity to give it to him and to showcase his skills, I feel I'm obligated to him. And so you'll see him, a lot more, just whether it's in the pass game or doing other things to kind of help prepare him to play into the next level.
Well, Reggie Davis, 8 carries, 35 yards. Is that what you expected from him?
I had to kind of shut Reggie down a little bit. Some of the antics, and just behavior standpoint. He got to clean it up. When the refs start to get agitated about, some of the behavior, some of the things, then I got to cool him down. And so that was basically me, just telling him, hey, look, right now you just got to calm down. You can't go out here and play, not being in a good mental state. And so he'll get more touches when he continue to do what he's supposed to do from a behavior standpoint. But we know Reggie is a fabric of this football team, but he just got to calm down and can't let his emotions be on his sleeve.
Jalen Tolbert, 15 of 28 for 207 yards, had the interception, only sacked once and a touchdown. How would you evaluate his performance?
Throwing the football, that's kind of what he does. But, right now, you judge a quarterback off of wins, and right now we don't have any. And so, he got to do whatever he has to do in his power, especially with his legs. That's my battle cry when I go back over, and watch film with him and the offensive guys. He's going to be forced to take that football down and run with it, or somebody else going to be back there. You got to do it, the way we ask you. But you can't be scared, and you got to take those opportunities to make them play 11-on-11 football. The days are old of just pocket passers sitting back and defense is playing 11-on-10. And so we're going to have some things for him this week to be able to, show that he can run the football and keep defensives honest.
So through the first 4 games, how would you evaluate Jalen Tolbert and just learning this box storm offense and just getting acclimated to it? We talked about some of the things that he's done positive, but just where you are with him the first 4 games as we get ready for a bunch of home games coming up.
We can win with him. He got a lot of improvement, just like all of us, starting with me as the head coach. But I know he can win. He has a winner personality. He just got to look for the smaller things now, being smart enough to know that, hey, look, these guys are dropping 8. Everybody dropping back. Hey, let me just go push the issue, with my legs, get 4 or 5. Now it's 2nd and 4. 2nd and 5, the linebackers get up closer. Now we just open up windows, behind him. From that standpoint, he has a really good running game that's really getting him some boxes, and you see when those boxes are loaded, he's throwing the football at a high rate. But now it's just those hidden yardage that we would get, from quarterbacks that, hey, we'll just take it off, slide, get 10, get 12, get 8. Those are the hidden yardage that you don't really account for. That defensively, I got to sit up every night and go over every quarterback that I go against. Got to run and able to run. And so he got to understand that. And I know, Coach Gales and those guys will put a game plan together, but it's definitely be emphasis on him, showing his legs, or you'll see somebody else back there that's going to do it.
When you look at the receiving column, Coach, with Anderson, Jarvis Rush, Marion Blakes, McGee, Cole Williams, 207 yards in receptions. Of course, 79 of those came from Cahill, who had the 3 receptions for 79 yards. How would you assess the wide receivers Saturday?
If we just if Jake stay on his feet, and make a effort, and it ain't his fault, on that interception, I thought those guys played well. Marion on the perimeter and just seeing KO, in the offense, the ball's going to go to the guy that's open. And I thought KO did a really good job this week of taking care of that, opportunity when he had it. Elijah made a big catch on the sideline. So those guys are catching the ball efficiently. We didn't have any major drops this week. And so I know those guys continue to work. Coach AR does a really good job with them. And we just got to continue to play at a high level when the ball comes to us.
Speaking of that, Coach, there was a text that came in talking about our receivers and why aren't our slot receivers and tight ends involved more? Do you feel like they are involved a lot?
Yeah, you see Cole. Cole had a couple catches, at the tight end spot this week. And he had a couple. He may be leading the team from a tight end standpoint. But you got to block also. Tight ends ain't going to just catch the football. They got to block and do some dirty work, inside. And, you see, Jacoby Matthews, catch a big-time out route, over. But it's that same deal, when you're not throwing it, then you're giving it to Sewell. And when you ain't giving it to Sewell, everybody's saying you're throwing it too much. So, that's the catch-22. But it's enough footballs to go around. But in this offense, we're going to run the football and we're going to throw it to the guy that's open.
Defensively, Coach, I want to ask you about a stat. We didn't have a sack coming in. And there was a particular play involving Cedric Roberts. I thought he had a sack. But you look at the official stat sheet, it shows that particular play, 11-yard loss, as a TFL, tackle for loss. Do you remember that, and do you think that was a sack?
Yeah, I thought it was a sack. I talked to Coach Rowe, just kind of teasing him that he finally got one, but I guess not. So I had to look and see what they look like. But we do turn it in. Coach House does a really good job. Mr. House does a really good job, with the stats in the national office. So we'll check that. But still left a lot out there. Still a couple more where, we laying at his feet or running them out of bounds, and we're not collecting them. And so that'll be a points of emphasis again this week, with the guys that we got, because we know their quarterback going to run around. But I thought we did a better job of getting after the quarterback. Now we just got to seize the moment and get him to the turf.
What is the distinction in this category when you talk about, we're looking for sacks, and that could have been one, the distinction between the TFL, which is tackle for a loss, and a sack in that situation?
The sack is a concerted effort by the quarterback to pass the football. And so you get so much run game now that if it's a RPO or he's scrambling, sometime if he's scrambling, they'll think that may be, some kind of quarterback run game. So if it's quarterback draw and you tackle him behind the line of scrimmage, technically that's a sack. But if they think that he's in the movement pattern of running, then they'll say that's a run play and it's a tackle for loss.
So that's kind of a judgment.
Yeah, interpretation. It's kind of like who was the quarterback that fell down and let somebody break the record for the sack?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that.
Okay.
Is it really a sack? But you fell on him. However, technically, by rule, it's really a sack.
So based on that particular play, we thought Cedric Roberts had a sack, and I certainly did.
Me too. But I'm quite sure Coach is going to turn it in because he needs them numbers.
So leading the way defensively, Coach Damarian Edwards with 9 tackles, Jalen McCrory with 8, McKelton with 7. Just overall defensively, I'm looking at Christian Peters, 323 yards passing. Didn't see that coming. How would you assess the defense?
We just put a lot of guys in the box to try to stop the run, and I think they finished with maybe 110, 115. You look at around the league, that's about the average of what you're gonna get, especially with these running quarterbacks. Man, it's just hard to stop these guys in space, and those are the hidden yardage, like I'm talking about with Jalen. When you look at just the handoffs, you may have 50 yards worth of just running backs, in yardage, but the quarterbacks on these scramble, they actually pass plays, but when those guys take off, it show up as running stats. And so you can give up 150-yard rushing, but they could be, a lot on pass plays. And so we got to do a good job or a better job of getting that ball out. We gave up some explosives, but, we're playing with some guys who, first time really playing college football. You look at, T. Haney played a little last year, Audrey and, Pat, those guys at the corners, and, they playing their tails off the best way they can. And, it's tough in this league, with skill on the edge. And so those guys are battling it out. We're excited about it. Right now, we just got to win, Mr. Charles. And I know all of it, compounds that of losing. And so, we just got to do whatever it takes that's going to get a W in the column right now.
Well, speaking of that, you're talking about guys that were out. You're playing some different folks, some players. Of course, you talked about your kicker situation. Talk about Mako. He said last week he was a game-time decision. Didn't see Mako Saturday.
Yeah, he got in the when we got to the stadium, he kind of ran around and he actually taped it up, but just said it wasn't he wasn't feeling good, and it still kind of bothered him. So we'll check him out this week, see can he move around, but we definitely miss his presence, just being inside that slot, but also doing some things, package-wise for him.
Yeah, how much would he have made a difference with this particular defense that we were facing?
I mean, he would have made a difference versus all the defenses. You see him on the play that we tried to get to him against A&M at the quarterback for the Wildcat stuff, and he hurt it. So that package still lives, that we just waiting on, him to get back healthy. And if not, then we just got to move, Andre up, to be able to do some of those things. But we're going to get some quarterback run game, to be able to make these guys play 11 on 11. It's unfair when you just sit back and, we got to chase quarterbacks around, and then I'll sit in there and, he can throw it a little bit, but also he's going to have to run it a little bit also. And so if not, then we just got to put somebody back there that's going to do it. But that was Mako World, So we still got that package for him. And so as soon as he get healthy and he's ready to go, he'll step in and lead the charge on that.
What about Spotsville? Talk about him.
I think Spot's done for the year. I talked to Rod. I think he has surgery coming up, but I think he's pretty much done. Based on what the trainer and what his family has discussed with me.
So how tough is that? Because he's a guy obviously that was big for us.
Well, you talking about him and Roscoe. That's two of the inside guys that we was counting on. But it's a part of it. Everybody in this league dealing with injuries, and we got some guys that got to step up. And play. EJ and Tobias Hinton, those guys got to go. And so we expect those guys to step up. You just more so hate it for those guys because they work their tails off and they train and they do all these things. And to just be, have their season cut short, your heart really goes out for him.
What about Damian Jones? Talk about him.
Dame in practice over the off week, he dove for a ball and hurt his back, or like the top of his collarbone, and so he was out due to that. But that didn't happen in the game. That was during the off week, and saw him on Sunday. Said he felt good. He had some little range of motion. Supposed to be going to the doctor tomorrow, so I think he'll be back and ready to roll.
Coach, when you look at this game, you talked about penalties. We had 12 for 106 yards. You said penalties didn't cost us the game, but they were just so untimely. They were kind of backbreakers and trying to play behind the chains, how tough that is. Those were just tough penalties to overcome, and people have been talking about it. Some games which we've had a bunch of penalties, and I guess you just got to keep going back to work and try to cut those down.
Yeah, if I made that statement, then that wasn't taken the right way. The penalties did cost us. They had a major part in what we were doing. You're talking about 30 yards. We could have been off the field. That matters. You're talking about on the last drive. We get 20 yards from a legal formation and a false start. So if that statement came out of me, that wasn't right. Because those penalties did cost us and had a major impact on us not winning this football game. And so we got to just hone in there and we got to do the little things. And it's just a constant, preach that the little things matter. What you're doing. In the weight room, what you're doing in the meeting room, what you're doing off the field. All that matters from a discipline standpoint to just get you to focus in, especially down the stretch. So we'll do some things differently because those penalties are happening, at the end, where guys are tired and, been playing a little bit. So if we got to change some things around, and we will change some things around from a practice standpoint, to just get them to understand they got to focus in, especially when you're tired.
We'll take a break right here. We'll take some of your questions, and we'll look ahead to Prairie A&M. Prairie beat Grambling in Dallas. They have a pretty decent running game, a pretty decent defense, and we'll talk about that. As we roll along, the Cedric Thomas program returns after this 60-second timeout on the Braves Network.
We've always known that education is the pathway to greater understanding. In our School of Education and Psychology, we believe in the power of human potential, both yours and those you'll serve. You'll join a community that has always championed innovation in human development while finding your own unique path to impact. Because we've always known that teaching isn't just a career, it's a calling. Always educating, always inspiring, always Alcorn.
We are exactly what you think. We are not at all what you think. We are past, present, and future, all in one. Because the best way to honor our history.
Football coach Cedric Thomas. Coach, this was a tough loss. I think you look at the schedule. They're all tough, obviously, but when you look at the schedule, Northwestern State, Alabama A&M, Mississippi State, and UAPB. There's a lot of talk, a lot of chatter, a lot of frustration, a lot of disappointment, some anger, a whole bunch of range of emotions, Coach. And, of course, with this winless start, some folks are saying, you know what, I don't know. I don't know how this thing's going to turn out. What would you say to fans that are kind of on the fence? They're like, I don't know if we're going to get this thing done. Should I continue to support? Because that's out there on social media. Some people are saying they're not coming to the games. They're going to tailgate and do other stuff. But what would you say to folks what would you tell folks to kind of keep the anticipation, the excitement, the synergy, the energy? Because a lot of air was unfortunately left out of the balloon, especially after Saturday.
Nothing, Mr. Charles. I can't tell him. I can't sleep. I'm getting up in the middle of the night replaying the games, all of them. So I don't have time to speak to ones who don't want to support this great institution of these guys or me. I got 110 people inside this program that I got to get up. We got to get off the mat, go to work. They got to take care of their kids and their families. Everybody suck. It ain't nobody feeling worse than them guys and these coaches in the meeting room. So I don't have any words to anybody who don't support or won't support because we're not winning right now. So this is a great institution. It's been through a lot. It's got great players, good coaches, got great environment. So if they don't want to support because of the W's and L's, then that's fine. But I don't have anything to say to them. But I got, some words for them guys in that locker room and the guys that do text me, positive things and things to kind of get us, on the right track. And we're going to continue to work. We're going to work until the work is no longer needed to be worked. And so can't wait to get up in the morning to do it with those guys and those coaches to try to right these wrongs. But it's a process, and we understand that. It ain't going to be easy. It just makes you appreciate those days and those games when you really win, because sometimes you take it for granted on what they feel like. And so we got to stop shooting ourselves in the foot and doing some of those things that's kind of negligent to us not winning. But as far as the people, who need a pep talk to support Alcorn, then, how much are they really vested in Alcorn if they need a pep talk about supporting Alcorn and these young brothers?
I was talking with somebody the other day, and they were like, you know what? There's no one that feels worse after a loss than the head coach. Head coaches are so vested in their programs, and I'm sure, as you said, it keeps you up at night. How tough is this for you personally and professionally, just trying to figure out a way to win some games here? The first four have kind of been right there. Alabama A&M right there, Northwestern State right there, UAPB right there. How is this on you personally, and just trying to figure out a way to get some wins?
Nobody understand. Until you're in the seat, you have no earthly idea. The lack of sleep because you keep playing and your brain don't shut off. Unless you suppress it with some type of medication, because naturally you're going to continue to play, go over your head, and then you got to get ready for the next one, and then you got a wife, you got a family, you got kids, and then the coaches, you got to make sure that you show strong, and we do have faith in it because, we go out and practice and we work on these things. That's the most frustrating part, that you kind of just, you sit there and you snap the football every single day. But this young man, for whatever reason, and we believe in something, the university wasn't our time, he just rolled it back on the ground. And so we got to continue to just go to work. But I can't put it in words for somebody to just go to work from 8 to 5 and just go home every day and then come pay money, or just show up on Saturday to see how we feel or how I feel or anybody. But they definitely don't understand.
How is the morale? What was the speech after the game? I mean, coming home, we got more home games than road games. We got a trip to Tallahassee, we got Houston, and then Jackson State. But we got home games other than that. Yeah,
I didn't speak. I didn't say a word besides pray with them after the game. The captains kind of handled that. My thing to them Sunday was, kids are visual, and when you show them those plays, you show them the missed extra points, you show them the penalties to get them 30 yards up, you show them the explosive play, and then the penalties to bag them up. So you show them all those things and said, you just let them know, hey, does that have anything to do with the other team? So if we can just take care of us and we're not influenced by external forces such as the other team, then we're in good shape. Those mishaps in those games that we're playing, it's not because of the other team, it's because of us. So we got to just, look at ourselves in the mirror, starting with me as a coach, and just making sure that I'm setting up the table and the foundation inside the building from a discipline standpoint, a structure standpoint. But the morale is up. They understand, of course they sad and they hurt, but we got to shake it off. You got another one. And one thing about it, it's a 24-hour rule. If you win, it's a 24-hour rule that you lost. And so we're going to get up in the morning and we're going to shake it off, and we're going to be ready for this good Prairie team that's coming in.
One of the obvious questions is, and you're seeing this with coaches, being let go and changes and coordinators and all that, even within this conference. Has it even crossed your mind, I need to make some changes because other folks are making changes? Do you feel like that's needed right now?
Yeah, I'm never going to do, what other people are doing, just, for no rhyme and reason. So, this is who I am, and I'm going to make every decision based on me and myself and not kind of what, the outsider's doing. And so, if we don't, continue to score points and the offense look like I want it to look like, and defensively, there will be some changes. But it won't be because of what other institutions doing or what other entities doing. That's going to be solely on me.
So you feel like right now you're kind of right there in terms of just a tweak here, turn of the screw here, nothing major that needs to be overhauled at this point?
No, we just got to clean the penalties up, and the mishaps, Mr. Charles. When you look at, the play calling, it's some things that we'll get fixed and we'll get done. But it's hard to call plays when when it's 1st and 20, when it's 1st and 30. You know what I'm saying? The coaches ain't out there, holding or teaching that technique. But we just got to get our young brothers to understand in those times how critical it is to just work the technique and hone in on those things. And so everybody, saying the same thing, got the same battle cry. And we know we'll get it fixed, and we're going to work our tail off to do it. And them guys going to get up in the morning with the same answer as they have been, because we know, inside the conference, we can win out. and still be where we need to be. But our goal, of winning the Western Conference Championship for us is still, something we can touch.
It was some interesting scores around the Southwestern Athletic Conference this weekend. Teams getting off the mat, some close games. So every game is going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, it's the league. It's a really good league, really good coaches, really good pageantry, inside of it. And so it's going to go down to the stretch. You just want to be playing meaningful football when it comes down to the end of October.
Yeah, I said Halloween. I said you want to be in the race, or even November. When you get into November, and I've heard coaches say you want to get to November and be in the hunt once you get into November, because that's 3-4 games left, and you never know.
Yeah, that's it. So we just got to come out this week, starting in the morning, and righting these wrongs and continue to get better. Understand it's a process. It's going to be some mishaps, but we just got to clean some things up and give ourselves a chance on Saturday.
Well, let's look at Prairie View, Coach. Let's look at the Panthers. First-year head coach Tremaine Jackson. His team beat Grambling over the weekend. They beat Texas Southern. That was the only conference game played until this past weekend. So they beat Texas Southern 22-21 on the final play of the game. Rio Grande Valley, they lost 27-21. They lost to Rice 38-17, and they beat Northwestern State 27-24. And then 28-13, a victory over Grambling. They scored a touchdown in every quarter. So you look at Prairie View coach Tevin Carter, 5 rushing touchdowns. They've got Cameron Peters also, so maybe a 2-quarterback system. What do you see in Coach Jackson's offense?
It's explosive. Those guys do a really good job. You see the 2 quarterbacks being played. One more of a natural passer, but both of them can run. But Tevin more of the runner. He's long, he's lanky, he can throw it, but they're explosive. The O-line play massive. They put you in the mind of the old Grambling offensive line a couple years ago, so those guys are going to create another line of scrimmage. They're going to cut you. They're going to get up on you, so we got to do a good job with our hands. And they got a wideout, I think, that's number 2 in the league in receptions that we definitely got to have an eye on. So we got our hands full, from a preparation standpoint. To make sure that we put these guys in a great position to be successful. And so we'll head back over once I get done here and continue to work on this game plan and knocking things out so we can give ourselves a chance.
Well, they have 12 rushing touchdowns. They've rushed for 224 yards versus Grambling. So when you look at their running attack, they have Lamega McDowell, 216 yards and 3 touchdowns, and Chase Bingman, the redshirt freshman, he's very active in the backfield, number 3 in the league.
Ground and pound. And then Tevin is the one, like we talked about, making you play 11-on-11 football because he'll pull it and he'll get, you see the long run versus Northwestern. You see a couple runs he had against Rice. So, we got to make sure that we keep that guy bottled up and make sure that we can get safeties down in the box because they're going to force you to play 11-on-11.
So when you look at the receiving core, you got a guy number 1 in receptions, and Rockwell, they just have 3 receiving touchdowns, but what's the challenge of trying to slow them down?
Yeah, he's a big body, can run, he's physical, and then he can stretch the field vertically. A lot of times he gets them down there, and then they let the quarterback kind of run it in, so he definitely could have way more touchdowns than what's shown on that paper because he's dynamic. And so just looking at us with the corner play, we expect our corners to get a lot of work, with those guys, and we'll put some safeties over there and roll some coverages over to his side. Just so they can have some help. But, them guys got to win some one-on-ones. That's what they get paid to do.
Top 4 defense that we're looking at. They have 5 sacks. Top 4 defense, and you look at who's leading the way, Trevor Randall, 10 tackles and 1 interception versus Grambling. He's kind of all over the field. Yeah,
they run the new 3-high, secondary structure, just kind of put you in 4 eyes, got a big slug inside. There's 2 gaps in it, so we got to do a really good job of maintaining the line of scrimmage. The O-line, got their hands full also. We expect those guys to come out, chomping at the bits and continue to play, consistent. But it definitely won't be the D-line that they face versus UAPB. No slight to them. But those guys got some lead in their pants and pretty thick up there. So we got to do a good job of moving them, trying to get up to them backers on the second level because they do just so much on the roof from a pass game standpoint. So we got to make sure that we can create new line of scrimmage and also get some extra surface so we can get this run game off and then to take what they give us in the pass game.
What do you see in Tremaine Jackson? First-year head coach, did a lot of talking at media day and beat Texas Southern on the final play of the game, so he's off to a good start. Played Rio Grande Valley tough, beat Grambling. Even the Rice game through the first half, it was kind of right there. What do you see in just the operation and just some of the things that you see from him and the way he does things?
Just confident. A lot of times when people come in and they speak, in that term, some look at it as arrogance, but he's a confident young man, which he should be when you look at his track record and what he's done. So I look at a confident brother that's won on all different type of level, that put a good product out there. And so kudos to him. Anybody that's associated with this league that shed a light on HBCU, not only from a coaching standpoint, but a development and just a loving of these young brothers and everybody that's a part of it. You always kind of give him a thumb up. And he does a really good job, with his, scheme also, offensively and defensively, and special team as well. So we know they're going to be a real well-coached football team that's going to be sound, and we really got to find out what they're doing, before Saturday and, put a good game plan together so we can get a win.
How excited is this team, or you think will be just to be at home for the first time? We may be the last team in the country to play a home game, but I'm glad to be at home. We got 5 games at home. We got back-to-back, homecoming coming up, and then we got Valley at the end of the month. Just being on the road, it's never easy to win on the road, but now we're at home and we have a chance to make some noise.
I don't know, Mr. Charles. I have to ask him. I think we got more distractions at home. You see our situation with that dormitory and where they party at, so I definitely be out in Steph mode trying to see, it's 10 o'clock curfew. They understand that, we got to ranch it up a little bit, but we'll definitely be outside. So for us, we kind of get more on the road just because of, that part. We got to really be disciplined, for the home games, because when you're housed the way you're housed in our situation, it's in and out through the dormitories all time of night. And it's also, the parking lot is going to be really intense for the first home game. So as coaches, we got to be disciplined and make sure we out there making sure these guys get the proper rest that they need. So I'll definitely go over and ask them in the morning, how they going to feel about playing at home.
Keys to victory, Coach: offense, defense, special teams.
Penalties. We got to cut down on the penalties and just execute on the kicking game. I think if we can just clean up that part, offense, defense. We had one turnover, on the slip. And a couple explosive defensively. But if we can cut down on the penalties, don't turn the football over and limit the explosive, stop that run. That might be more than 3. But I think, we'll be where we need to be. And it's time to, it's just time to win. At the end of the day, we got to win. Whether it's by 1 or 100, that's what we got to do.
Looking forward to being at home, Coach. The road is never kind. You just never know what to expect on the road. But when you're at home, as you mentioned, you have to be on alert. But it's just a little bit of a comfort level when your fans are behind you. It's high school, community colleges day. So I'm kind of looking forward to the crowd coming out on Saturday. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff, and we'll have the pregame at 2:30. Coach, let's go get them. Let's get our first win of the year.
Yes, sir. I'm with it.
That's Braves head football coach Cedric Thomas, ladies and gentlemen. Glad you can join us. Jamario Brooks, as well as Cedric Tillman, our producers. Charles Edmond here. We'll talk to you on Saturday at 2:30, Alcorn and PVU. So long.